Were you in your car when you called the police station and the hospitals looking for John?
Yes, it was.
Do you know at that point whether anybody else had called the police station?
No, I don't know.
Do you know at that point if anybody else had called any hospitals?
I don't know.
How long did you wait in your driveway?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Maybe like 7 minutes, 8 minutes.
What were the conditions like out that morning?
It was bad. It was in the middle of a blizzard.
When you were outside in your car in the driveway waiting, describe the lighting conditions for us.
It was still dark out. It was 5 o'clock in the morning and it was snowing, so it was not great.
How was the visibility?
Not great. It was coming down really fast at that point.
You said that night when you went to bed the snow just started. Had snow accumulated at that point?
No, I don't think so. It was just starting to stick.
I'm sorry, that was the night before, but at this point when you were in the driveway, had the snow accumulated?
Oh, yes.
Do you know how many inches it was?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Enough that the plows are out.
As you were waiting for the defendant, did she arrive at your house?
She did not.
What happened?
Again, I don't know if I called her or she called me, but eventually we connected on the phone and she said, I said, where are you? I'm waiting. And she said, I'm at Jen's house. And I said, Jen who? And she said, McCabe, she's going to drive my car. And I said, okay, well, listen, they don't want cars on the road because it's so bad. I'm already in my car. I'll come there to Jen's house, stay there, and we'll follow each other and we'll go back and drop your car off. Did you look in the house for John? Could he just be in the house, passed out somewhere? And she said, no, she hadn't looked in the house. So I said, okay, now I'm going to come to Jen's. We're going to take the car home, drop it off. We'll check around the house. And then I don't know what the next step at this point was. I just wanted to check the house.
At the time you directed that you were going to meet at Jen McCabe's house and then drive to John's house, was there any suggestion by the defendant where she wanted to go?
I didn't know where Jen's house was. I knew the street. I had dropping Kaylee off or picked her up a few times. So I said, stay on the phone with me so I don't know which house it is. And so when I got there, I pulled in the driveway and there was some conversation about...
Can I back you up and just ask you a little bit about the drive there? I don't
Yep.
mean to interrupt. When you left your house, you talked a little bit about the weather conditions. How long did it take you to get from your home to Jen McCabe's?
Oh, it's quick. Probably 4 minutes.
What was the driving like?
It was not good driving. That's why I didn't want 2 cars on the road.
Did you have any difficulty driving through that storm?
No, I mean, it was treacherous. But I was in 4-wheel drive. I have an SUV.
You mentioned you didn't know exactly where Jen McCabe lived. Had you been there to drop off John's niece before?
Yes, but I didn't know which house it was because when I picked her up before, she was either getting out of the car at the driveway or waiting at the end of the driveway. So I didn't know which house it was.
I think I interrupted you, but were you telling us that as you drove to Jen McCabe's house, you were on a Bluetooth, on an open conversation with her to help with directions?
Yes, Jen and Karen were in Karen's car, and I was on the phone essentially with both of them.
Do you know what type of vehicle the defendant was driving at that time?
A Lexus SUV.
As you drove over to Jen McCabe's home and you had some guidance finding it, did you hear any conversations in that open line with, or even any statements by the defendant?
I remember when I pulled in behind her car in Jen's driveway, and at some point Karen said, my taillight, and I looked, and Jen she must have had the brake done because you could see that there was missing taillight.
When you say missing taillight, was it merely cracked?
No, there was a piece missing.
Could you see that as you were parked right behind the defendant's SUV or Lexus?
She must have been applying the brakes because you could see it, but there was a lot of snow.
When you saw that the taillight had a missing piece, did you say anything?
No.
Did you think anything of it?
No.
How long were you parked behind the defendant's Lexus while it was parked in Ms. McCabe's driveway?
Not long. We were just, I pulled in and then we stopped and then the next plan, at some point in that conversation as well, or maybe on the ride, because now we're heading to John's house to drop a car off. I pulled out of the driveway, Jen pulled out, and I followed behind all the way to John's house. And at some point, Karen said, I left him at Waterfall. And I heard Jen say, no, I saw you pull up in front of my sister's.
Was anything else said about the broken taillight?
No.
You followed Miss McCabe?
Yes.
Where did you go?
To John's house.
Did you arrive?
Yes.
I want to ask you some questions about when you arrived and what you did next.
Okay.
When you arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's home, you were in two separate cars. Who pulled into Mr. O'Keefe's driveway first?
Jen pulled Karen's car in first.
So Miss McCabe was driving the Lexus,
Correct.
and the defendant was in the passenger seat?
Yes.
After you both pulled in, tell us what happens next.
We went, I wasn't sure if it was, at some point Karen showed us the taillight up close, but I didn't know if it was when we arrived or when we left. But we went into the house to look for John.
When the Lexus was parked by Miss McCabe in Mr. O'Keefe's driveway, was it facing the street or facing away?
Facing where the basketball hoop is, not facing the street.
I'd like to approach.
Okay.
I'm going to show you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, that's John's driveway. That's Karen's car on the left and John's car on the right.
Do you recognize both those cars?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize that photo as a fair depiction of his driveway?
Yes.
Do you recognize it as a fair depiction of the motor vehicles?
Yes.
Now, when you went there that night and you pulled in behind Miss McCabe and the defendant, is there any differences between how that area looked when you pulled in as opposed to that photo?
Well, it was the early hours of the morning, so it was dark out, and there was much more snow. And there was
Other than
snow
this-
coming down.
I'm so sorry. You want to finish?
Nope.
Other than the snow and the lighting, is there any other differences?
Nope.
I'd like to introduce this as an exhibit, please.
All right. There's no objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish.
Okay.
And to help us understand, you see on the left is the house.
Yes.
There's a motor vehicle in the middle of the driveway, but it's the vehicle to the left.
Yes.
And whose vehicle is that?
That's Karen's.
Is that where it was parked that night when you went into the house?
Yes.
In the motor vehicle to the right. You recognize that?
That's John's car, or SUV.
Thank you. You can take that down. I'm showing you a second photo.
Okay?
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
What is it?
It's the back of Karen's car.
Does it look like a fair and accurate depiction of her car as it appeared that morning in the early morning hours to you?
Yes.
Do you notice anything that's distinguished in that photo?
The piece that's missing in the taillight.
Which one?
The right passenger rear.
Do you know when? I'm sorry. Do you know when this photo was actually taken?
I do not.
Although you don't know when it was taken, is that a similar depiction to your memory of how it appeared that morning at 5?
Yes.
Or a little after 5?
Yes.
I move to introduce this exhibit.
Okay.
Objection. The court's permission, I'd like to publish.
Yes.
We could take that down, please. After you arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's house, what was the plan to go inside? What were you looking to do?
To go inside and look and see if he was passed out somewhere. So we went in through the garage, and I started looking. I think Jen ran upstairs to Kaylee's bedroom, and I just started looking through the living room. Basement door was locked from the inside, so I knew he wasn't in the basement. And then I checked the other living room. He has a big house. Then I went to the top of the stairs to check his bedroom.
As you looked around, what was your mood?
What was my mood?
Yes, were you calm?
I mean, I was worried, so we were, at this point, Jen had already established that they went to her sister's.
Sustained.
Okay.
Jen had already
Now, let
Hold
me ask the
on,
question.
Ms.
I'll ask
Roberts.
the question better. My apologies. How many rooms did you look through in John's house?
1, 2, 5 or 6.
Did you see Miss McCabe looking in rooms as well, searching?
She went upstairs when I was looking downstairs.
At some point, as you were looking, did you see the defendant?
Yes,
Was she looking with you?
she was in John's room.
What was she doing?
She was just standing there when I came up to the top of the stairs.
Did she say anything?
No,
Did she do anything?
no,
Was she searching?
I don't know. She was in the room.
What happened next?
At some point, Jen earlier had said,
Well, let's not talk about what was said. Okay. Let's
Well,
just talk about
the plan
best
at
you
this
can,
point
your-
is
your
to go to
memory of what was
34
done.
Fairview.
Ms. Roberts, I know. I'm just going to ask you to wait for a question
Okay.
because we can only get one person at a time. So next question, Mr. Brennan.
Again, my apologies. And so as you're looking through the house, you don't find John. What happens next?
the plan was to go back to Jen's sister's house.
Who made that plan?
Karen wanted to go back there.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. How did that conversation come up, and share with the jury what was said?
And the car ride to Meadows, Karen said, I left him at Waterfall. And Jen said, no, I saw you pull up in front of my sister's. So then Karen said, we need to go back to your sister's. And I said, no, we're going to go to Meadows, and we're going to drop the car, and we're going to look there. Then we'll go there if we don't find him.
When you were at the house, Meadows, John O'Keefe's house, and you didn't find him, was there any further conversation about what the next steps would be?
I said, let's go. He's not here. But I didn't know where Jen's sister lived. So we got into the car. Jen was in the passenger seat. I was driving my car. Karen was in the back seat.
Did you
And Jen
begin?
was giving directions.
Did you begin your way towards Meadows?
Yes.
And it was Miss McCabe who was giving directions?
Yes.
As you began driving to head towards Meadows, in addition to trying to drive, were you doing anything like looking or searching?
Well, yeah. We were looking on both sides of the I was looking on both sides of the road in case he was walking home.
Did you see Miss McCabe searching?
Yes, she was looking out as well.
Describe a little detail about what you saw Miss McCabe doing.
She was looking out the window as we were driving. So was I, as I was driving.
And where was the defendant during that time?
She was in the back seat.
Was there any conversation, comments, statements?
Well, she would be in the back seat, and then she would be in between Jen and I, in the back seat, and then in between Jen and I. She was just very frantic.
Okay. Was she saying anything?
There was conversation on the way there.
Okay. Was she looking as well? Did you see her looking out the windows like you and Jen?
I don't know if she was because she was in the back seat.
As you drove to Meadows, what was the visibility? The same or better or worse?
No, it was poor.
Did you make your way towards Meadows?
I did.
As you finally got to Meadows, was the house on your left side, your side, or on the other side?
Are you talking about Fairview or Meadows?
I'm sorry, Fairview.
Okay. The Fairview house came up on the left-hand side.
Before you got to the house, is there a tree line between that house and the house before it?
Yes. There's a cluster of trees and bushes.
All right, take us back. I want to talk about that morning. As you're driving and approaching Fairview, tell us what you hear, what you see, what's happening.
Jen's giving directions, and it was really bad driving. I was white-knuckling because it was getting slippery. Karen wouldn't put on her seatbelt because she was in between us again the whole ride and then sitting back, but she was worried because we weren't finding John.
Were you having words?
Yes.
Tell us.
I said to Jen, where are we heading? And she said, my sister lives on Fairview. And I said, where is that? She said, off of Chapman. I said, oh, okay, near Spring Lane. At some point, Bella's mom came up.
Tell me what that means.
I didn't know who it was, but it was one of Kaylee's friends, Bella's mom. Well, the directions. At some point, Karen was talking about Bella's mom to Jen, saying she never liked me. I didn't know who this woman was that they were talking about. but apparently Bella's mom lived near where Jen's sister lived on Fairview.
Did you learn any more about the relevance of Bella's mom?
No. Oh, well, I think John had dated her.
I'm going to allow it.
So as you approached Fairview, tell us what happens.
As we approached Fairview, at the house. You mean the house or the street?
Yes, the house.
The house. Jen said, my sister's house is right up here. And I said, okay. And as we approached the house, Karen from the back seat is now screaming, there he is, let me the F out of this car. And she's out kicking the back door to get out.
When you heard the defendant scream, there he is, and started kicking the car door, did you see anything?
I did not.
Did you see anybody?
I did not.
Did you look?
I looked.
Was there anything that impeded your ability to see far?
No. It was just snow.
How far could you see when she was yelling, there he is?
How far could I see?
Yes.
I mean, the visibility wasn't great.
Okay. Was she pointing or giving any direction?
No, she just said, there he is.
Okay. What happens next?
And then I unlocked the car. I looked over, I didn't see anything, and I unlocked it so she could get out of the back seat. I looked at Jen and I said, she's crazy. And then I turned around and watched, and she ran over to a bound of snow.
When she started running, before she got anywhere, did you see anything at that point?
I did not.
Were you looking?
I was looking. She said, there he is, so I'm looking around to see where he is.
And you could see nothing?
I did not.
Did you see her run around or directly?
She ran right over to the mound of snow.
Could you tell what the mound of snow was from the car?
Once she got to it, yes, it was. Once she got to it, you could tell it was a mound of snow that was the length of a body.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop you there, Mr. Brennan. I need to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please. Regarding Keith. Yeah. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mrs. O'Keefe.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brennan.
Could you kindly introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Margaret O'Keefe. I am John O'Keefe's mother.
Are you married?
Yes,
Who are you married to?
John O'Keefe Jr.
How long have you been married for?
Too long. 53 years.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
53. Long enough?
How long have you lived in the area?
We moved to Canton 3 years ago.
Before you moved to Canton 3 years ago, where did you live?
Braintree.
How long had you lived in Braintree for?
50 years?
Did you begin your family in Braintree?
No, we lived in Mattapan first, and that's where my daughter was born. And then we moved to Braintree.
Your daughter was born when you were in Mattapan?
Mm-hmm.
Your daughter's name?
Kristen.
How many children did you have?
3.
Did you Kristen and John?
And Paul,
Is Paul the youngest, the baby?
the baby.
Did you raise your children, how long were you in Mattapan before you moved closer to here?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
How long did you live in Mattapan before you moved closer?
2 years
And then the rest of the time you were in the area?
in Braintree.
And tell me a little bit about your immediate family.
My daughter.
My daughter Kristen had a tumor, a cancerous tumor that she had for 5 months. And she died in November of 13. She had 2 children. And then 2 months after she passed, her husband passed from a heart attack. And then you all know about John. And then my son Paul is
Over there.
That was 2013, ma'am? Could I ask you about her children?
She had 2 children, Kaylee, who's now 17,
And Patrick is 14. And he's a run for my money.
Do you remember how old the children were when your daughter passed?
3 and 6.
When that happened, was there any plan for the children?
As far as
Or what was going to happen with the children?
when she passed
Yes, ma'am.
and when he passed,
Yes, ma'am.
my son decided to be the head guardian, and then we had I was the other guardian, and there was Steve's brother and sister were the other 2 guardians. There's 4 of us.
May I approach to adjust the microphone?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Talking too soft? Okay.
Did I understand that there was a decision that John would be the primary guardian? Can you share with us how that decision came about?
Well, he was single. The other 2 guardians were married, and they didn't have children, but he decided to do it himself, and then I was the second one in case he needed me. So I was over there most of the time, like when the kids get home from school or, take them places, and then have them on weekends so he could have a break. So that's what I did.
Did other people help out in addition to you and John?
Yes, my husband was there, and Paul and Erin were there, and the other members of Steve's family.
I understand at some point John worked in law enforcement.
Yes.
Besides that, could you just share just a little bit about him with us?
He was a police officer at headquarters. And when he first started, he was in Hyde Park, and then he moved to Dorchester, and then into Boston itself, and that's what he did.
I was hoping if you could tell us a little bit about John besides his work.
He was enthusiastic with sports. He was wonderful with the kids. He took care of them and did everything for them. Take them places on vacations and everything. He was their number one when they called him JJ.
Would you mind if I showed you a photograph?
No.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you a photograph,
Okay.
and could you tell us what you see?
That's my son?
Thank you. May I introduce this as an exhibit?
Yes.
Exhibit 16.
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish.
Yes.
Ms. O'Keefe, do you know when this picture was taken?
I really don't know. It was in the summer of I don't know what year. I really don't know the year. But is that one he probably took him to a fair or an amusement park, and he had his picture taken there with it. And then the kids were with him too. So.
Do you know how old he was in that picture?
43, maybe.
Okay. What year was John born?
75.
Ms. Gilman, could you take the photo down, please? How old was John when he passed?
45. My mind's not working right now.
I understand. It's okay. Can I ask you a few more questions? Okay. You let me know. I want to go back to the morning of January 29th, 2022. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Were you home
I was home in Braintree.
in Braintree? Who were you with?
My husband?
Did you receive a phone call?
Yes, from Carrie Roberts. It was about 6:15, between 6:15 and 6:30 in the morning.
Did you know Carrie Roberts?
Yes.
How did you know her?
She lived in Braintree for a while. John and her were friends. They went to the junior prom together. And then we found out that she moved. She lived in Canton, and she was around the corner from us, and she helped us out with the kids.
And when you were helping take care of the kids, would you often see Miss Roberts?
Yeah, because she'd take Patrick and her son Ryan places. And, yeah, so I saw her all the time.
Often?
Yeah.
When she called you that morning, do you remember the conversation?
Yeah, she said John was found in a snowbank. And I didn't understand, which I said, what do you mean, found in a snowbank? She said, they found him in the snow. They don't know what happened. She says he's brought up to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
So she says, I'm going to come get you and Papa because I don't want you driving. And I says,
we can drive there. We both have four-wheel drives. And she says, no, I'm coming. So she came to get us. And it took a while to get there because the snow was bad. And in the meantime, I had called one of my nieces to find out, because one of my other nieces worked at Good Samaritan. I just wanted to know if she could find out anything about it. And I just couldn't get a hold of her. So when we get up there, they told us to sit in this room, and they would bring us down shortly. So finally they said, okay, you can go down. So we started walking down the corridor, and as I'm walking down, I hear Karen Reed yell, Peg, is he dead? Is he dead, Peg? Peg, is he dead?
and I just kept walking. And then I asked, I don't know who it was, a nurse or a worker at the hospital. And I said, what is she doing here? And she says, oh, she's being psych evaluated. So then they brought us down to the room where my son was. He's bruised up, his eyes were closed. It's just not a good scene.
Okay. I'd like to go back, if I may.
Okay.
May I?
Yep.
When Carrie Roberts picked you up in the car, did anybody go with you and Miss Roberts on the drive from your home in Braintree to Good Samaritan Hospital?
No, we were the only three in the car.
Who was the third person?
My husband?
During the drive to Good Samaritan Hospital that morning,
Yep.
did you ever have a chance while you were in the car to speak to the defendant?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about that conversation.
She, I asked her what happened, and she said, we went to a party. I left him there. I said, you just left him there? She said, yes, I just left him there.
Did she say whether she left him inside or outside?
No, she just said, I left him there.
Did she tell you whether or not she left him in the driveway or the street?
She just said, no, I just left him there.
You told us that when you got into Good Samaritan Hospital, you were walking down the hallway and you had another interaction with the defendant.
Yes.
And you told us that she was asking if he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a little bit where in the hospital you had this interaction with her?
When they took us down to the emergency room, the doors open, and there was a corridor to go down to the other rooms, and she was on the left-hand side, and that's when she saw me come in, and that's when she started yelling, is he dead, Peg? Is he dead, Peg?
So when she was yelling, could you describe her mood or demeanor? Was she animated?
She's just loud, and I don't know. She was just loud, and as she was saying it.
And when she was asking you, is he dead, is he dead, did you again ask her a question?
I just asked the nurse, what is she doing here?
Okay. And did you speak to Miss Reed herself?
No. No.
At some point, and you and your husband got to see John?
Yes.
And were you with Kerry at some point?
Kerry was there, and then my son Paul was there.
How did you get home?
I think I went home with Paul, and I think my husband went home with Kerry. We went back to Canton at the time.
Do you remember generally the time frame? Was it morning, afternoon, evening?
No, it was morning.
Do you remember getting home that day?
Yep. It was snowy, icy.
Was anybody home when you got back?
No, it was just us. And then the kids started coming home. And that's when I was trying to, take care of them. And then there was a knock at the door. And it was Karen, her father, and her brother asked if they could come in. And I was just trying to calm the kids because Patrick was just out of control, yelling. And then they came in. And then he said, do you mind if we go upstairs and get a couple of her things? Which I never should have let them go up there. But at the time, I just couldn't think straight. And I really didn't have anybody else to help me keep them down in the kitchen. So I don't know what they got up there, what they did up there.
How long were they, when you say upstairs, do you know what room they went to?
I assumed the bedroom.
So I'm going to strike that, Mrs. O'Keefe. If you could just, what you actually know, okay? And Mr. Brennan can ask a better question.
Thank you. Could I lead a bit?
Yes.
Ma'am, how many rooms are upstairs in John's home?
1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms and an office. And off the master bedroom, there's a bathroom, and then there's a closet. It's a big house.
Did you see the defendant and her father go upstairs?
I didn't really see them go up, but I knew they were up there because I could hear them.
You didn't follow them up or go to look?
No.
You didn't know which room or rooms they were in?
No, I'm assuming the bathroom and the master bedroom.
My question was poor. You didn't see which rooms they actually went in?
No.
How long was the defendant upstairs in John's home with her father?
I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes?
Did you see them come back down?
No, I did not.
When they were upstairs, what were you doing?
I was trying to calm the kids.
Both of them?
But yeah, well, mainly Patrick.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court is in the case now in hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Get to stand.
Good morning.
May I?
Please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Camerano.
Mr. Camerano, can I ask how old you are? I'm sorry.
Spell your last name.
Camerano.
And so if you could either move the microphone down a little bit or speak up, or maybe a combination of both, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask you how old you are?
48,
Where do you live?
Canton, Mass.
How long have you lived in Canton for?
Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. We have 2 children.
How old are your children, sir?
My daughter is 17. My son is 14.
Did you know John O'Keefe?
Yes.
How did you know him?
I met John for the first time at his sister's they had a benefit for his sister in 2013. I met John there for the first time. And then years later, our kids got involved with sports together, and they became very close. As they became close, I became very close with John and his family.
Was your daughter close with John's niece?
Yes.
Was your son close with?
Yes.
Did you spend a lot of time together through sports and socially?
Yes, we did.
I want to take you forward to January 28th of 2022.
Okay.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Had you, without any discussion of what might have been said, did you have any discussions with John that day?
Yes.
Did you have a plan?
Yes, we were communicating.
At some point, did you decide that you were going to spend some time or go meet John?
Yes. That Friday, my daughter and his daughter, they got acceptance letters to school. So we wanted to get them together so they could enjoy the time together. And, just, go over like how it would be so much fun, something new, different. Yeah, so we were going to meet up after I got out of work.
Was your daughter planning to go to a new school?
Yes.
Where?
Bishop Fan,
And how about his niece?
same.
They both got accepted to
They
the same
both got
school?
accepted to the same school.
Was it a celebratory mood?
Yes.
Did you have a plan to bring the children together so they could celebrate?
Yes, we did.
And then separately you were going to meet John and celebrate?
Correct.
Where did you drop your daughter off?
I dropped my daughter off at John. I went into John's. I was at the house with John and the girls, and we had a little celebration. Talked about how nice it's going to be, fun, change, different, meet new people.
And you celebrated at John's house before you went out?
Correct.
After the celebration with your children, did you and John leave?
Yes.
During that celebration, was there anybody there other than you, John, and your two daughters?
No. No. Karen was not there.
Was there anybody else there?
No, just the two girls, myself and John.
What was the weather like that night?
It was cold. It was not snowing yet.
Was there an expectation for
Yes,
the
there's
next
an
morning?
expectation. Yes,
And what was that?
that there was going to be a big snowstorm coming in.
A storm was coming.
Yes.
When you left, did you leave in a separate car than John, or did you leave together?
No, we left together. John got in my car, and we were leaving. We were going to leave.
Where were the girls?
The girls were in the house, stayed in the house.
They were staying at John's house?
Yes, correct.
Where did you go?
We went to C.F. McCarthy's.
When you got there, did you know anybody who was there other than you and John?
At that time, no.
Did you spend time at C.F. McCarthy's?
Yes.
Were you drinking?
Yes.
Was John drinking?
Yes.
Alcohol?
Yes.
How long were you there for?
A couple hours.
While you were there, did anybody come and meet you that you knew?
Yes.
Who?
A friend, and then Karen came in.
The friend.
Yes.
What was the friend's name?
Kurt.
And then how long after you first got there was it that the defendant arrived?
I would like to say within an hour, so not 100% sure.
You said back home it was a celebratory mood. Was it still a celebratory mood at McCarthy's?
Yes.
When the defendant arrived, did she spend time with you and John?
I've talked briefly to her, and her and John were mostly talking.
Okay. You didn't see any issues?
No.
It was a normal night,
Seemed to be, yes.
as far as you could see.
Yes.
And you saw John drinking.
Yes.
Did you see the defendant drinking?
I saw her with a glass, yes.
Did you leave at the same time that John left?
No, I did not.
When you left, was John still at the establishment?
Yes.
When you left, was the defendant still with him?
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I left because I got a phone call. My son was playing hockey in the backyard, and he got hit with a stick and lost his tooth.
Oh. Where did you go?
I went to my son's friend's house.
Do you know about what time that was when you went to see your son?
I would like to say 9:30, in between 9:30 and 10.
You didn't go back to McCarthy's that night, did you?
No, I did not.
After you helped your son, where did you go next?
I went to pick up my daughter, Madeline,
Did you go?
at John's house.
Did you go in John's house?
No, I did not.
When you got to John's house, did your daughter come out?
No. We went to the side door
Okay.
and rang the doorbell.
And then what happened?
And then my daughter came to the door.
Where did you go?
From there, we left and went home.
When you went home, had the weather changed at all?
It was cool. It might have been flurrying at that time.
No accumulation?
No.
You got home?
Yes.
Did you do anything significant when you got home?
Put the kids to bed, my son, and no, I went to bed.
What's the next thing you remember happening?
Waking up to, I missed some phone calls
Who were the missed phone calls from?
from my wife and Karen.
What did you do?
I called my wife.
After speaking to your wife, what did you do?
I got in my car and drove to John's house.
About what time was this?
In between maybe 5 and 6 a.m.
What was your mood at that point?
I was panicked
Why did you go to John's house?
because I went to get Kaylee.
Did you know if she was alone?
Yes,
How long did it take you to get to John's house?
maybe 5-7 minutes.
When you get to John's house, what do you see?
I pull in the driveway. I see that the garage door is open. I go in through the garage door. I don't know if Kaylee was standing there, if the door, she came out the door, and I asked her, if she needed anything, she could get in my car and stay warm.
When you first saw Kaylee, what did she look like?
She looked distraught.
Did you try to help her?
Well, I think I just said everything will be okay.
Did she come with you?
Yes,
Where are you going?
to my house.
So what happens?
So we go to my house, and my daughter's up, and the two girls they were hanging downstairs, just hanging out, just being kids. And then, I don't know, a couple hours later, maybe, Paul called me and asked me to bring Kaylee home.
Did you know anything at that point?
I did, yes.
You did or didn't?
At that point, I did when Paul had told me.
So what do you do?
Asked Madeline and Kaylee if I'd say, Madeline, we come for the ride. I don't say anything to Kaylee, and we get in the car, and I start heading back to John's house.
And you didn't say anything to Kaylee?
No, I didn't. I just said everything will be all right. She had a feeling.
Why do you say that?
She don't want to go home.
So what happens next?
So I pull in the driveway, and I remember Paul and Papa standing. I think they were standing at the side door, and we just embraced.
Did you stay?
No, not long. No,
Did you go back?
I was to the house. I went back to my house.
Did you go back to John's house?
I did the next day. Yes, I was there.
When you went back, were there people there?
Yes,
Many?
there was people coming and going.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good morning, Mr. Camerano.
Good morning.
This is quite painful for you to remember the events of January 28th, is it not?
Yes.
You were very close with your friend John O'Keefe, correct?
I was close with them, yes.
And you actually met Karen Reed through John, correct?
Correct.
After meeting Karen, you spent a good amount of time with both Karen and John, correct?
Correct.
As of January 28th of 2022, you had known Karen for maybe about a year or so?
Sounds correct.
And you'd see them especially on Fridays, correct?
Correct.
That would be sort of the day that you get together with both of them often?
Yes.
And of course, your children spent a lot of time with John and Karen, right?
Correct.
You entrusted both Karen and John with your kids.
Yes.
Sometimes your kids would even go on vacation with Karen and John, right?
They did go to the Cape, yes.
Sometimes you'd see Karen without John at your house or on a ball field.
Correct.
And your daughter in particular would sometimes spend time with just Karen without John, correct?
Correct.
Your daughter would sometimes go over to Karen's house in Mansfield when she lived there, correct?
Correct.
And obviously when your daughter would go to Karen's house in Mansfield, Karen would be the one in charge of caring for her, correct?
Correct.
And you were fine with that because you liked and you trusted Karen, right?
Correct.
And in your view, Karen was very good with kids, right?
Correct.
But you also had the opportunity to see Karen and John together, right?
Yes.
You saw how they interacted with each other over that year period that you knew Karen?
Yes.
You saw how they got along?
Yes.
And you never observed any arguments or bickering, correct?
I mean, they argued and bickered.
You had previously testified that you wouldn't even call it arguing, you just call it banter, right?
Yes. I mean, he would, I mean, no, he would get upset or like over if she bought expensive things for the kids.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. We will get to that. That would be the one thing that John would complain about, Karen buying like very nice things for his niece and nephew, right?
Correct.
Or he'd complain if Karen was taking his niece and other girls to get their nails done, like extravagances like that.
Correct.
And one specific memory you have is when Karen bought his niece a very expensive sweater, right?
Correct.
And you recall John telling you that he wished that she hadn't done that because he considered that to be spoiling the girl, correct?
Yes.
But it was very clear to you from your observations that Karen really, really liked John. I'm sorry, John really, really liked Karen, right?
Sustained.
He certainly never told you or even suggested he was thinking about or planning to break up with Karen, right?
No.
Okay, so with regard to that Friday night, January 28th, sir, the plan was for you and John to go to McCarthy's to have some drinks because there was a storm coming in, correct? And because of the celebration of the girls getting into Bishop Fen?
Well, yeah, we were going out. It wasn't a continuation of the celebration of the girls. We were going out to have a few beers as guys.
Okay. And when you were leaving the house, John asked you to move your car, right?
Correct.
Where was your car when John asked you to move it that night?
Actually, I backed up my car. We were leaving the driveway, and John asked me to stop so he could move his car.
I see. And he wanted you to move your car because of the storm coming in, and he wanted Karen to be able to pull her car into the garage, right?
Correct.
And that was really thoughtful of him, wasn't it?
Yes, extremely.
And it showed you that he was being chivalrous toward Karen that night, right?
Yes.
He didn't want Karen to be out in the heavy snow later when she returned to his house during the expected blizzard, right?
Yes.
Sustained.
You took from that there was an expectation that Karen would be coming back to his house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You had no inkling that day that anything was wrong between Karen and John, correct?
No,
Everything seemed fine between the two of them, right?
yes, he did mention though that night that he didn't understand why Karen had a plumber go to the house.
Because he had somebody that could have done that work instead of paying for the plumber, right?
Well, yes.
Okay.
And
But in any case, the plan was for Karen to meet up with the two of you, right?
yes,
And she did show up to McCarthy's at about 8:30 p.m. or so?
yes, I guess, if that's the time.
And you saw an affectionate...
I'm sorry, what was the answer that you
If
said?
that was the time, I'm not sure about the timeline.
Okay. It was sometime after
Yes.
you'd gotten there. Right.
Correct.
But you do remember when Karen arrived, there was an affectionate greeting between John and Karen, right?
Yes,
You saw them kiss, right?
yes,
You saw John put his arm around Karen,
correct,
and you saw that Karen sort of nestled into his embrace.
correct.
And when she did that, that's when he kissed her, correct?
Yes,
And they seemed happy to see each other, did they not?
they did.
That night they were affectionate,
Yes,
laughing,
yes,
happy,
yes,
like a normal couple.
yes.
No arguments.
No,
You witnessed no bickering, no tension, correct?
no,
And during the month before John's passing, that January of 2022, you observed their relationship in your presence to be normal, caring, and affectionate, right?
yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
You were asked a number of questions about the relationship between John and Karen that night. Do you know what was going on behind closed doors other than what you saw?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No,
Do you know whether or not they texted each other that day?
no, that day, no.
Do you know whether or not there was any arguments that day?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Not to my, no, I don't know if they were, I don't know if they were arguing over the plumber situation. I
Do you
don't
know if there's any vulgarities that day?
No,
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that night?
no, not to my knowledge.
Do you know whether or not John was trying to end the relationship with Miss Reed?
Objection.
Do you know that, sir?
No,
Next question.
Do you know if there was any jealousy in that relationship?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I mean, I mean, Karen wouldn't let, I mean, they did everything together, a lot of things together, and I thought at times, yeah, you could see, she didn't want other women around John. I don't know, not at that, but
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Cameron, you're all set, sir.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your testimony today?
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
She asked if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Yes.
Did you discuss anything after that, after she testified with her about her testimony?
No.
We know that through her testimony that you had a conversation with her the morning that she testified.
Yes.
Right? Did you discuss what you anticipated to be her testimony in that conversation before she testified?
No.
Have you and Ms. Roberts ever discussed anything about either one of your testimonies either in the last proceeding or in anticipation of this proceeding?
No.
So for the entirety of the last year, even though you both went through a proceeding last year where you both testified under oath and it was highly, highly publicized, neither one of you, your good friend Carrie Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time?
No, we've discussed the case, and we've discussed what happened that moment, the moments of the morning, but we have not discussed testimony.
Okay, so let's break that down for a second. I'm talking about, because the timing matters, I'm just asking at this point, if you'll bear with me, just the year from last year at a different proceeding to this year, you have discussed this case
Yes,
with Ms. Roberts.
many times, yes.
And you've discussed the specifics of her memory, which would be reflected in her testimony, correct?
We talked about what happened that morning.
So you were talking about what she remembers happening that morning, correct?
No, what happened that morning.
Okay, so not to put too fine a point on it, Ms. McCabe, but if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, it's my memory of what I had for dinner last night. Would you agree with that?
Sustained.
Did you talk about her perception of what happened that morning during the last year?
We've talked about what has happened, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to break it down between you and Ms. Roberts. You've discussed her perceptions and her memory of what happened, as well as, and separate and apart from, your memory and your perceptions, correct?
Correct.
So there have been circumstances in which you and Ms. Roberts have compared, by definition, what she remembers versus what you remember, correct?
I wouldn't say compare.
Now let's move to well, what would you say in terms of what you've discussed and why?
I would say that we've both talked about what we've discussed, but it wasn't like a comparison. We weren't comparing anything.
You've talked about what you discussed. What does that mean? Talked about your testimony?
No, we've discussed what happened that moment,
Right.
and in those moments. So, when I got a phone call, and that's my story. I got a phone call in the morning, and then Carrie can say, yeah, I got a phone call as well.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were your
truth.
words.
It's the truth.
Okay. So, for instance, when you got a phone call at 4:53 in the morning, Carrie Roberts wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
But you've discussed that with her.
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception of that, your memory of that phone call was, even though she was not recipient to and did not witness that phone call, correct?
I've told her about the phone call, correct.
As well as many other details that she was not privy to personally, correct?
Correct.
Conversations that you've had, for instance, conversations that you claim you've had with Miss Reed, correct?
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception is of those conversations, or your memory was or is of those conversations with Miss Reed, correct?
Which conversations with Miss
Any
Reed?
conversations, just anything that she wasn't privy to. You've discussed that with her.
Some things, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And conversely, Ms. McCabe, obviously, she's also discussed certain perceptions and memories that she has about this case, and the facts of this case, as she recalls them, that you were not necessarily privy to, correct?
Yes,
Things that may have taken place outside your presence, correct?
correct.
And you've talked about things, she's talked to you about things, now I'm getting myself confused. Y'all have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception. And you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times would you say you and Miss Roberts have discussed your individual perceptions of what you remember happening on the 28th or the 29th of January 2022? How many times?
It would be hard to put a number on that. We talk about, it's hard. We're bonded. We talk about the trauma that we relive every day. Karen called us for help, and we both answered the phone.
And that bonding is the glue that holds you two together. Is this case, correct?
Yes,
So that probably, by definition, is the foundation of many, many, many of your conversations. Would you agree?
We've grown into friends where we talk about many other things
Sure.
besides the case.
Sure, the movie you saw last weekend and what the kids are doing next week.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. We
Okay,
talk
so-
many different things, just like girlfriends do.
I'm just concerned with and asking you about the subject matter of this case and the details and the facts of this case. You two have probably talked hundreds of times, that's fair to say, about your individual perceptions, your respective perceptions of this case, correct?
This happened 3 years ago, and we've talked about it time and time again. This case has traumatized us, so
And
it's a
talking
huge part
about-
of our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe it just, I meant traumatized our lives.
Okay. It would be impossible for you two to have had so many conversations about your respective perceptions of the details of that day without that influencing the other person, correct? You've somehow been influenced by Miss Roberts' perceptions and her memories, correct?
I don't think I would say influenced.
Would you say that she's been influenced by your perceptions and your memories?
Objection.
Would you say that, Ms. McCabe?
No, I wouldn't.
Next question.
How many times have you met with anybody from the DA's office? And I'm just going to limit the time frame right now in anticipation of your appearance in this trial, yesterday and today.
I'd say roughly 4 or 5.
Can you give me a time frame when those 4 or 5 meetings were?
I don't have dates. I do remember at one point I met with Mr. Brennan. He was new to the case, so I went in and he introduced himself.
How long ago was that?
I
Weeks or months?
I can't give you a time frame. I'm sorry.
Do you think it was last summer?
No,
Do you think it was?
no, it was more recent.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
wasn't in the fall of last year?
No,
It was in 2025 sometime?
I believe so.
You
Yes.
think it might have been February, January?
Again, I can't give you an exact. I'm sorry.
All right. I want to talk about the time frames of those conversations, then I'll ask you a little bit more about those conversations. So that was the first meeting that you had was with Mr. Brennan in anticipation of your testimony. What were the subsequent 4 meetings or so that you've had? With whom and approximately what time?
Okay, so another meeting with Mr. Brennan. Are you looking for who was
Sure.
there?
Who else
All
was there?
I mean, can I give you a general answer? I didn't write down like every meeting who was there, but
Of course.
generally, okay.
Was Mr. Lally there?
During 1 or 2 of the meetings, he was, yes.
Was Ms. McLaughlin there?
Yes.
Was there anybody else from the DA's office there?
The officer or trooper Tully was there at one. Trooper Buchanan was there at one. The witness advocates were there. And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are 2 meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the 3rd meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure, understood.
I apologize.
How many meetings would you have? Let's just start there. How many meetings have you had with Mr. Brennan and either staff or colleagues?
So after the first initial meeting, I
Right.
would say, again, I didn't write them down. Off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 more after that.
Okay.
Excuse me, first initial one.
So that's either 4 or 5 meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues, Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin perhaps, Mr. Nelson perhaps, the other employee of the DA's office, and Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
Correct.
You asked questions about at any of these meetings. I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of
Okay.
these 5 meetings. By the way, when was the most recent?
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to.
Yes, I'm going
Yeah,
to stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm just going to lead you through this question.
Okay.
You had a conversation last night. I'm not interested in that particular conversation. That
Okay.
was for a very specific purpose. I'm asking you about everything leading up to, but not including last night's conversation, okay?
Okay.
So let's just leave that one out. you've had, I think you mentioned, either 4 or 5 other meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues and or law enforcement.
Yeah, and I might have, in the 5, included that one from last night.
Okay, fair enough. Were you asked questions in those, we're just going to call them 4 meetings. Were you asked questions during those 4 meetings about your testimony at the first proceeding last year?
I reviewed I did review some of my testimony, yes.
In what format?
I watched.
Paper transcript or?
No, we just watched a little bit of it.
Do you watch your direct examination?
A little bit, yes.
Did you watch your cross-examination?
A little, yes.
Who cross-examined you?
You did.
That was me.
Yes.
And did you watch the redirect or any part of it?
No.
Did you watch any part of any subsequent version of recross or additional questions that you were asked?
I don't believe so, no.
Was there a specific area that Mr. Brennan asked you to look at and review in terms of your direct or your cross-examination?
No.
Did you watch the entirety of the direct examination and the entirety of the cross-examination?
I do not believe so, no.
Were you questioned by Mr. Brennan following your review of that direct and cross-examination?
No.
So he didn't ask you any questions about any of your answers?
I don't, he showed me a dash cam and would ask me to point out who's this, who's that, a waterfall video, is this you, is this somebody? Those were the type of questions that he asked me.
What about any discussion about your demeanor and how you performed in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
I'll ask it a different way. What about your demeanor? I'm using probably a poor word, perform.
Mm-hmm.
How you came across, your demeanor in the last proceeding. Objection.
Sustained.
Did you discuss changing your demeanor in any way, shape, form, or fashion from the last trial to, the last proceeding to this trial, my mistake. From the last proceeding to this trial, was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Was there any discussion about talking about your background, for instance, your family and your children and being a sports mom, as you talked about in your direct examination?
No, I believe I did that in the previous one as well.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
Was there any discussion about how to develop your testimony from beginning to end? I object.
Sustained.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you about, or let me ask it a different way, did Mr. Brennan take you through a series of questions, for instance, as almost a test run of questions that you might be asked either on direct examination or cross-examination?
No.
Did you practice your testimony with any member of the DA's office?
No.
Were there any sessions where you sat and was subjected to a cross-examination, like a fake cross-examination or a fake direct examination?
No, there
Anything
wasn't.
like that?
No.
What were the things that stand out in your mind? You said you had at least 4 meetings. How long was each meeting, by the way, ish?
The first meeting, I think, was fairly quick. It was just the introduction.
30 minutes, less than 30 minutes?
I don't want to give a time because I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it was fairly quick, yes.
Okay. What about the second meeting?
Again, I don't know specific meetings, but I can tell you that there was a longer one where I did watch some dash cam video, look at different pictures, things like that.
What kind of pictures did you look at? Other than the dash cam video?
The pictures of John's house.
Okay. The same photos that we saw today?
Yes.
How long in total would you say all of those meetings were? Just taking them all together.
I really can't give you an estimate. I think the first one was fairly quick. The second one, one of them was a little bit longer, maybe a couple hours.
Okay. Then the third one, was that also a couple hours, or was that one fairly quick?
That was fairly quick, yes.
So fair to say between 2, 3, 4 hours total meeting times?
Again, I'd have to probably go back and look at the date and the time. I really can't give you a specific amount of time. I apologize.
Did Trooper Tully or Trooper Buchanan ask you any questions during the course of any of these meetings?
Regarding the case, no, but we did briefly talk about how my kids were, how their kids were.
But they didn't ask you any questions about your testimony, about about the case, about your memories, about specific facts?
I do not believe so, no.
During any of these meetings, was anybody taking notes? Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, any of the troopers?
No, I don't believe so.
So there was several hours worth of meetings with you, and nobody scribed any notes that you saw?
None that I saw, no.
And these meetings were not recorded?
I do not believe so, no.
Ms. McCabe, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your family because I just want to make sure it's crystal clear who's who. You're married to Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes.
Your sister is Nicole Albert.
Yes.
Nicole is married to Brian Albert.
Yes.
It was Brian Albert's home that you were at, 34 Fairview, that you arrived at where John's body was found, correct?
Yes.
The same home where that late night gathering was on January 28th going into the morning of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself to be close with your sister Nicole and Brian?
Yes, very close.
Your families are, it's not just you and Nicole, your whole families are close, correct?
Yes, we have a very close family.
How long have you known Brian Albert?
Since I was in kindergarten.
You consider him, even though he is not blood related to you, you consider him family?
Yes.
In addition to Brian and Nicole Albert, you're also very close with Chris and Julie Albert, correct?
Yes.
Just to be clear, and I'm going to do this slowly,
Okay.
Brian Albert's younger brother is Chris Albert, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert.
Yes.
You consider Chris and Julie family, even though there may not be a blood relation as well, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is a Canton Select Board member, is that right?
Now he is, yes.
And the Canton, that's in Canton? I said Select Board member. Did I mention Canton Select Board member?
It is in Canton,
Okay.
yes.
All right, obviously it's in Canton. The Canton Police Department reports to the Select Board, correct?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that echelon?
No.
Okay. You're aware that Brian Albert, your friend of, I'm not going to say how many years, but since kindergarten, was a Boston police officer.
Yes.
He had been a lifetime law enforcement officer for some 30 years before he retired recently, correct?
Yes.
He's a trained first responder, obviously.
Yes.
Brian Albert and Chris Albert have another brother named Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes.
Kevin Albert is a detective with a police department, correct?
Yes, I believe that's his title. I'm not 100%.
Which police department is Kevin Albert associated with?
Canton.
And you've grown up in Canton your whole life, you indicated.
Yes.
Your entire family has grown up in Canton, correct?
Yes.
And you, Ms. McCabe, have three sisters. Nicole, we've talked about. You also have a sister named Shelley, is that right?
Michelle, yes.
Michelle? Mm-hmm. And Denise, who you mentioned in your direct examination.
Yes.
Nicole is also known by nickname, is that right?
Yes.
What is Nicole's nickname within the family?
Coco.
Does Shelley also have a nickname? Well, I guess Shelley is the shortened
Shelley
name for
is.
Michelle, correct?
Yes.
What about Denise?
She's Dee Dee.
Dee Dee?
Yeah, like Deedeee.
Your father lives close by in a neighboring town, correct?
Yes.
Don't tell me the town, but it's relatively close to Canton.
20 minutes, yes.
Okay. His name is Tom Weeks.
Yes.
There are, I'm not going to go through all of them right now because the family tree is getting large, but there are children, cousins, second cousins, nephews, aunts, uncles, there's a combination of familial relations within that set of folks that I just talked about, Chris and Brian and Nicole and you and Matt and the folks that we've just talked about.
Yes.
That family, that large family, celebrates holidays together, I'm guessing?
We don't typically, celebrate with Kevin and Chris, but my family does, yes.
Along with Brian, Albert, and Nicole?
Yes, of course.
Birthdays are celebrated within that family?
Yes.
Go on vacations together, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Gatherings like the one on the 28th?
Yes.
Special events?
Yes.
Spend weekends together?
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of sporting events. There's a lot of sporting events that y'all go to together.
Yes.
So it is very, very easy to see that it's an extremely close-knit family.
Yes.
And naturally, you're very protective of your family, as anybody would be.
Yes, I love my family.
You also said that you knew, and your words, liked Karen Reed, my client, on the 28th of January 2022, correct?
Yes.
But she very much is not family, correct?
Correct.
She certainly was not as important to you as your actual family, the Alberts, the McCabe's, the folks associated with them. Is that right?
Yes.
On January 28th, 2022, members of the Albert family and the McCabe family all went to a bar together, had drinks together that night. The Waterfall, we've heard a little bit about that, correct?
Correct.
Ultimately, you went back to your sister's house for the after party that we've heard so much about. That was at Brian Albert's house, is that right?
Yes.
You've been interviewed, I think you indicated multiple times, you didn't even give a number of how many times you've been interviewed by police in this case, is that right?
Yes.
Your family is connected to people at Boston Police Department. We've just talked about that. Brian Albert, is that right?
Well, Brian was a Boston police officer.
Right. So when I say connected, there is some familial or family or friendly connection to that police agency, Boston Police Department. It'd be Brian Albert in this case, correct?
The objection sustained.
There's also a connection to the Massachusetts State Police through your family, is that right?
Objection.
So define connection.
Julie and Chris Albert are very, very close to you, right?
I'm close with Julie and Chris, yes.
You're aware that Michael Proctor's sister, Courtney, is basically best friends with Julie.
No, I'm not aware of that. She's best friends with Julie's sister, Jillian.
Okay, so Courtney is best friends with Jillian, who's sisters to Julie,
Yes.
who's married to Chris, who's an Albert, who's the little brother of Brian Albert.
Yes.
Okay? And Canton Police Department, there's also some connections there as well, Kevin Albert being the most obvious of them.
Objection.
I'm going to allow that. Do you have a connection with the Canton Police Department?
Not with the department, but with Kevin Albert.
Right, who's a member of the department.
Yes, but my relationship's with him.
Understood. You've indicated that you've been interviewed by law enforcement agents associated with with Canton Police Department. That'd be Officer Lank.
Yes.
Can I
and
stop
also
you for a
good.
second and see counsel at sidebar, please?
Sure.